You want to be an architect,
Maybe a truck driver?
maybe a realtor.
Something in the medical field?
Huh. Listen to Career Paths on Unedited.
Thursdays.
Customers and blah blah blah. So I actually did listen a little bit. Tried to. I try to pull information out of them. Let me know when you're ready, sir.
Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Sure. Right.
I'll do the hand clap and we'll fake it like we do. Ready? Going, hey.
Hey.
Welcome to Career Paths by Infonet. I'm your host, Victor Boudreau. Today we have Brandon Humphreys. And Brandon, what's your career job that you are now?
I am a public high school teacher, but I'm an online public high school teacher right at the moment. So,
Online public.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
Huh. So, hey, let's start as we do with all of our guests. Give us a little background on yourself, age, family, married, kids, anything else we should maybe know?
I am 42 and I've got a dog and it's just me and him basically, you know.
Nice.
I've gone through a lot of different stuff and been a lot of different paths in life and had a lot of different jobs and careers and still continue to, but
and once again, I know our guest today, so we I've been pulling a lot of our guests. So you're an online teacher. What and where were you when you decided to become a teacher? Because that's probably what it started as, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I worked. Obviously, you know, at 42, you would think that I'd been teaching for a longer. Well, we'll just say a longer time than I have.
Right.
Because this is my 6th year now. But before that, I mean, my main career was in the health insurance industry, and I hated it. Hated every minute of it. I worked in almost every facet of it. I worked in claims adjudication. I worked I worked in sales. I worked in all that stuff. And one day, one of those jobs, things just really came to a really nasty end, and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to work to make somebody else rich anymore, and I want to do something different.
And you were in the military for a short time.
Yeah, I did serve in the Air National Guard for Washington Air National Guard for 6 years, so from September 2001 to September 2007. So honorably discharged.
Honorably.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you. So, what things did you do to become a teacher, or how did you go about to get started in that path?
Well, there were a couple of things that I had going for me at the time that were really nice. First of all, I was married at the time, so I wasn't...
You were married, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Just once?
Somebody actually said, yes, at one point. I don't know why.
You lied, but
yeah.
She didn't know. Anyway, go ahead.
She was under duress. Anyway. But no, thankfully she had a really good job and was able to support both of us while I tried to figure out what the heck I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than jumping right back into going to college for teaching, what we decided was, hey, why don't you start by teaching something that you know, like let's do private guitar lessons out of the house for a while.
So, guitar lessons. So you play music, or
yeah.
do you play guitar?
Yeah, that's one of my 4 jobs right now that I have, my 4 careers.
You play guitar, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's laughing because we were actually in a band during this particular time of my life.
We still play music, and there's stories to do with that. But we're trying to go more on the teaching part because so
I taught guitar lessons for about 6 or 7 months before I really ended up starting college again. Okay. And I'd already had some college at that point. You know, I went right after high school for about a year.
General stuff? Yeah,
just general stuff at Spokane Falls. And then while I was an insurance industry person, I did go to finish up most of my AA at the Falls using my GI Bill money, but I never finished it during that time. So,
right.
And then after I taught lessons for a while and realized that I really did enjoy working with younger people and working with, teaching people how to do things. That's when, the ex-wife and I decided, hey, well, let's get your associates finished up and get you started at Eastern. And
Yeah,
and we'll go.
You're a, I know what you are, but I mean, are you a math teacher? Are you a history?
No, I'm an English teacher.
Oh,
so,
English
yeah.
teacher. Yeah.
So I teach English. I'm also certified to teach history. As an adjunct professor for Eastern Washington University, I teach other English teachers. So I'm an English teacher and a teacher of English teachers.
Now back up. We've talked briefly before we started recording.
Yeah.
So let's go back. Right now, you are an online.
My main full-time job is as an online public high school teacher. So I teach for Washington's online public high school.
Correct, and that's what we've kind of stipulated. Mm-hmm. What was the other you just mentioned?
I just said so. I also as on the side because it's one of those things where everything I do right now in my life I love to do, and I can't believe I get paid for it. It's fantastic. So I get to.
I hate you.
Like, I know most people do when I say that, but I've worked very hard to design, and designed and built it that way because that was part of that decision when I left the insurance company. It was like, I don't want to work to make anybody else rich again.
Right.
And what I'm going to do is going to be of service to humanity, and it's the money that I make is going to be based on, because I've served society, not because I made some shareholder an extra 13% or whatever,
So, high school online teaching, how much time a week is that?
So that's my 40-hour-a-week job. Okay. And then when I teach at Eastern, that is technically about 5 hours of class time a week. Okay. And then I also write for a living as well.
Yeah, you do. So, what else is that writing for?
I write for an online website called space.porn, which is not a porn site. It's actually a space.
Saying that's a porn site.
No, it's a space news and entertainment website. So I write about stuff like SpaceX, and I just covered the International Space Station crew is changing command this week, so I just covered that today. So
how long have you been doing that?
Almost a year now for them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what obstacles were in your way?
Oh yeah.
Getting into this. Going to school, obviously. And
there were a couple that we should talk about that I think actually people watching would find.
Yeah, because that's the thing. We want to make sure we're trying to inform whoever hopefully watches this, learns whatever they want to be a teacher. Exactly. They want to get some insight and some perspective.
So the first thing was when I decided, okay, I'm going to be a teacher. I was at Spokane Falls, and I was like Petty said, right? The future was wide open. I was like, I could do whatever I wanted, but everybody kept telling me at the time, Spokane's a really hard job market. You need to major in something that's going to get you a job, so you need to be like a math or a science teacher. Well, like I never was really that good at math and science when I was in high school.
I can count to 4, just
but
okay.
No, you can't.
I'm a drummer. It's a drummer joke. Okay, shut up.
You can count to 4, just not the same way every time. That's all.
Anyway,
something happened. I don't know whether it was because I had turned 30 and all of a sudden my brain started working, but when I went back to the Falls, I had the only 2 classes. I had 3 classes that I really had to finish up, and they were 2 math classes, both the algebra classes that were requirements, and then a lab science. So I took chemistry while I was there, and I aced all 3 of them, just like nailed them. Even in fact got like a higher than 100% in the chemistry class, just because of extra credit and stuff like that.
Suck up.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go to Eastern and I'm gonna major in physics because I was all into astronomy at the time and space and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a physics major. So I go to Eastern, and my first quarter that I'm there, I took pre-calculus and Chemistry 151, and then a Native American Studies class. And I did over 5 hours of homework a night, not kidding, like an average of about 5 hours of homework a night for both of those, the math and the chemistry class. I barely pulled a 1.5 in pre-calc and barely pulled a 2.0 in chemistry. And it was like, okay, I have to go. On the other hand, the Native American Studies class, where all I had to do was write papers, I aced. So it was like, you know what? I'm just going to be an English teacher and do that. So yeah, that was the first challenge. And then the second hurdle was at the end. That was the first quarter of teaching at Eastern, and then of course The last quarter teaching at Eastern was when I got divorced. So that was like I had gotten divorced, and all my student aid, like my financial aid, ran out all during the same quarter that I was supposed to be student teaching. So it was like I was diving for home plate to finish that bachelor's degree. It was crazy.
So you had fun.
Yeah, it was. It was interesting times.
And just you saying that, you're on the other side. And,
Yeah.
And people that are going through whatever it may be, the school they're trying to figure out, and the mountain seems there.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on the other side, and it's not that high, is it? Because I know with my life and some of the things I've done, yeah, it doesn't. It's not sure when you first face it, but on the other side, you're going, it wasn't as that bad, but some challenges.
I think a lot about things like that and accomplishments like that in the same way I kind of thought about basic training when I went through it. One of the things that I kept telling myself when I was going through basic training is the fact that I'm never going to have to do this again. No matter what happens, I'm never going to have to do this again. I'm going to do this, I'm going to finish it, then I'm going to be able to say I've done it, and I'll never have to do it again. Yeah. And, it was one of those things is kind of that same way with, once I have this degree, I'm never going to have to do all this work again. I might do other work towards a different goal, but I'm never going to have to go through this particular struggle ever again. And so that's just one of those things that kept me going.
And don't you find, I've talked to some younger people that I work around lately, taking that experience from that, whatever you've learned and that situation, and then you're going to do something else, and you can apply some kind of information to that to make it happen it's that knowledge. Even if you fail at something, you can still learn something from it and use it in the future.
Well, and that's just it. Is the other thing I was going to say about basic training was the other major life lesson I learned there is that, and that's helped in every other stressful situation since then, is you are stronger than you think you are if you let yourself be.
That's true.
If you let yourself be, you are stronger than you think you are, and you can get through whatever it is.
Yep.
And so I've taken that to heart with me through every struggle I've gone through since then. I mean, and there have been a lot of them. So,
We've had fun.
And that's one of those things, that's part of the reason why I teach at Eastern now, so I can help people who are going through the same process that I went through.
Nice.
Get through it.
There you go.
So,
and because you're aware.
Yeah, because I've gone through that road.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the class that I teach out there is specifically designed because I've gone through it.
Nice.
And so that's why I'm teaching it.
Do you find you see you reach into somebody and actually, I probably an obvious question for you, but you talk to somebody, you give them insight or perspective, and you can actually see something or starting to see maybe their brain work?
The best way I can describe it is what you're doing is you're pulling them out of the trees so they can see the forest, right? Like when...
Wow, you have all these...
Yeah, like when you get so involved in a situation like that where you're so deeply entrenched in this work and in the pursuit of this one goal, the next obstacle right in front of you can seem like it's the biggest, most scary thing on the face of the planet. But if you're able to just step out of it for a second and look at the big picture, most of the time you'll see, I just need to sidestep it, or I just need to look at it in a different way, have a different perspective about it, and then it becomes not so scary.
Right.
And then you can get past it and move, further toward the the larger goal.
Like I was asking you to do it when there's a mountain in front of you, and they oh my God, you can't get. But after you've done it, you kind of go, it's not as big. It was a hill. It wasn't a mountain. So
there's a Tragically Hip song I really love to listen to that talks about that. The title of it is called "You're Not the Ocean," and the ocean is a metaphor for the problems, right? It's like whatever he just keeps going. I'm talking to a lake. I'm not talking to the ocean. You're not the ocean.
Exactly.
So I like it.
Once again, I have seen people online post how one of the worst days of my life, and they're younger than me, and I've known these people, and I responded, I've only had one bad day.
Yeah.
And I've had things happen. I'd rather not go into everything that happened.
Right.
With divorces, I've had several, lost jobs, car accidents, etc. But I've only had one bad day in my life, and that was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the only day. So, I don't know if I even asked you. What's the hardest part? Oh, no, I'm gonna find it. Hardest part, worst part of going to school, best part, and funnest part
Of going to school?
Yeah, being a part, being fulfilling, coming to your goal of becoming a teacher.
Well, I think the hardest part is just taking the first step. A lot of times, I think for most people is the hardest part. For me, that wasn't as hard as I think persevering when things got tough, and just making sure I stuck with it. But again, I really did most of my college career as an adult. So if you're in your 20s and you're looking at it, I mean, the sticking to it thing, I think you might have a harder time with than maybe I did, because again, I had that experience of going through basic training.
Right.
And, like, that's been my mindset of like, I started this, I'm not going to not finish it.
Right.
Excuse me. But the best part of it was the accomplishments. I mean, I'm somebody that I live on that, right? Like, that's my biggest motivator, is to be able to say that I've done things. I don't care about money so much. I don't care about material possessions so much. I want to be able to say I've done things.
Right.
And so that was the best part for me about not only the experience at Eastern of getting my bachelor's, but even getting my master's degree. Like.
So you have a master's degree now?
Yeah, I also have a master's.
I thought I've heard you kind of brag in the background about that one.
Yeah, no, I never. I don't put the initials MA behind my name ever, or anything like that. But again, like, I love the fact that I was able to do it, and it's one of those. I think maybe it comes from like the fact that I grew up, very humble, and from humble background, and it's one of those things where, yeah, man, I worked my butt off to get these things done, and I'm proud of them. So
and you should be. What were the challenges kind of the same question, but challenges you faced the school and training, besides, it wasn't financial, what kind of was? You were dealing with some personal stuff. I hate that question.
Actually, there is an answer to that. Like, and it's similar to, like, okay, so other than life circumstances, let's talk about like academic challenges. I think is maybe what you're talking about, right? So again, we were saying, I mentioned the fact that I went into it thinking I was good at math and science, and it turned out it wasn't as good as I thought it was. But I was really good at writing papers, and I had a couple of quarters under my belt before I got this one really tough professor, and I could not write a paper that he liked to save my life. And it was just one of those things. And this guy is, one of the star professors out there at Eastern. He's a brilliant mind, but his style of academic paper and my style of writing did not mesh at all. I mean, because and I'm not saying he's wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but I remember there was one paper in particular where he literally wanted me to set up the first 2 pages of my paper just with defining terms that I was going to use, and it's like, man, I don't write that way. Like, I just, but I had to adapt, and I did, and I learned to write, somewhat how he wanted, and I learned how to take getting a B instead of, having to have an A all the time.
Where did you start writing to get even to? I don't even know what that about you besides
high school.
What'd you write, or what was it a class that you?
You're probably. I think you said you were going to ask this later on, so we might come back to it. But,
go ahead.
But high school, and honestly, my 11th grade English teacher, who I share a last name with, but we're not related. She actually has the same last name as I do. But yeah, she. Mrs. Humphreys, it was like one of her first years teaching when I had her class, and she, for some reason, like, just got through to me that it was that year that I kind of like figured out that I should stop being a slacker and start actually paying attention to school. And like, my GPA, I think, went from like a 1.5 to a 3.8 in one semester just because I started doing my work. like,
detention, or you're
yeah,
awake instead.
but so I ended up. I had her. I had her English class, and I fell in love with writers like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Ernest Hemingway at that time, and like the way that they wrote made me want to do that. It's kind of like when you first decide you want to be a musician, you hear a song, and you're like, oh man, I want to do that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so it was kind of that same thing. So I started experimenting by just writing stuff in high school, and
I didn't know that.
yeah,
I didn't know that. I've never read any of your stuff.
Well,
So you're a musician. Do you write songs too?
yeah, a couple.
Okay. What about your career that you hate now?
Politics.
Can't imagine.
There are two things that people who want to get into teaching, especially those people who have kind of the pie in the sky, I really love kids, and oh my god, I want to be, it's this divine calling and all this stuff, which, okay, I mean, it kind of is, but let's get realistic, right? The fact is, it's a job that you have to go to do. You have to be serious about it, and you have to want to do it the best that you can possibly do it.
There's guidelines
and
too.
There are guidelines, and there should be guidelines, right? But part of the problem with the United States educational system is that nobody that works in the U.S. Department of Education, not now, not during the Obama administration, not during the Bush administration, none of them have ever been classroom teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know what it's like to actually run a classroom. Yet they make broad sweeping policies.
They're telling you how to do it.
And they do it, this is the second problem, they do it at the behest of really well-funded private corporations that design curriculum, that provide learning platforms, that do all this other stuff, and basically lobby those people. And so what happens is, every couple of years, we'll get this new directive that comes down that says, everything that you have been doing and learning to change for the last 5 to 10 years, we're shifting our attitude on that now, and we're now moving in this direction. So now you got to change this. So it's,
Wow.
that's the part that's the toughest to deal with. And I think, for new teachers coming into it, be ready for that. Just be prepared that it's always a moving target. And as one of my mentors told me, at the end of the day, if you get all of your kids home safe, you've done a good job.
There you go. So you're mentoring people now,
Mm-hmm.
and you've had mentors. Do you find yourself, is it weird being in a position now that you're the mentor?
I feel like it's a privilege. Like I'm really honored to be able to do it, and it's not weird. And I wouldn't have had the bravado to try to do this 3 years ago, but I feel like now I've got enough under my belt to where, the school where I taught,
You were a public teacher for 5 years.
Yeah, in a small town called Bridgeport, and the high school there is one of the top 3% of high schools in the United States.
Really?
By a couple different metrics. U.S. News and World Report puts them on that list, and I think Newsweek also puts them on that list.
Wow. Before you were there or after?
During the time I was there.
Sure.
Before and after, actually. I didn't do anything, but it helped sustain it.
Okay.
Anyhow, the teachers that I worked with there were some of the best teachers I've ever seen in my life. And I didn't realize it at the time because this was my first job as a teacher, right? So these are the people I'm learning from, and they're just amazing people, all of them. Like, they know how to teach so well, every single one of them. And it wasn't until I moved back to Spokane and had to substitute for a year before I got this job that I kind of got into a bunch of different classrooms around the area and started realizing just how good those other teachers in Bridgeport were.
Appreciated.
And I'm not trying to slam teachers in Spokane. I'm just saying that, obviously it's a bigger employment pool here than, just 14 of the best teachers you can find. But one of the things that did for me was boost my confidence level in my abilities, because I'm looking around at some of, these other teachers, and going, okay, well, I know I'm doing a pretty good job. I know I can. I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And
That helped.
It really did. It helped a lot. So that's kind of when I was actually approached by the department chair at Eastern and said, "Hey, we're thinking of redesigning the program. This is what we're thinking of, and we'd like you to teach the class. Are you willing to do it?" Yeah.
Let's see. You're gonna have me teach, and I get to be in.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're paying me? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe I get paid to do this stuff. It's awesome.
I can't believe they pay you either. Time in the office, or what? Behind the computer, or what's your time broken up? Being an online teacher, mainly for your 40 hours.
So we fall technically under the alternative education umbrella. So it's not the same as what some other online programs might be, because one of the things that a lot of people in Washington don't understand is that we have WAVA, which is the Washington Public High School. That's an alternative school that I work at, that any public student in Washington can go to for free. But then there's also some of the bigger cities have their own online public schools too. So Spokane Public Schools, District 81, has their own online high school that they administer themselves.
Wow.
So that's kind of the fact. I don't know whether Spokane Virtual Academy, which is what that's called, I'm not sure whether they fall under alternative learning or not. But because WAVA does, because my school does, students don't, their class load is a little bit different than what a normal traditional high school would be. So like I teach one class on Mondays, two classes on Tuesdays.
How long are the classes?
Half hour.
Okay.
One class Monday, two classes Tuesday, one class Wednesday, three classes Thursday, and then nothing on Friday. So the rest of my time is spent planning and prepping those classes, designing assignments for the students, grading assignments for those students, because I have a much higher student load than most regular brick and mortar teachers would have. When I taught at Bridgeport, I had around 100 students. Now I have about 180.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot. And
right.
If you just think about it as an English teacher from a math perspective, if you do the math, and if I spend with 180 students, if I spend 5 minutes, only 5 minutes on each paper, it takes me at least 13 hours to just grade that one assignment.
Wow.
So that's half a week's worth of work, right?
Wow.
Just for grading one assignment.
Wow.
You know, so it's a little bit different world than the brick and mortar world is.
That once again, I'm learning, and anybody that's wants to get into teaching, that's to have that information, to know at least little tidbits is going to help out.
Yeah.
To become a teacher, online teacher, or just use a brick
Well,
and mortar.
That's even in brick and mortar. I mean, that's the math of how much time it takes.
Right.
So if you do it, I think when I use that comparison, the high, I found it on a chart, and the highest number they had was 150 students, because I think most brick and mortar situations you would never have any more than that. But even 100 students at 5 minutes of paper is 11 to 12 hours worth of work, and you need to spend more than 5 minutes on.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 minutes just doesn't
like,
seem, if you're an English paper, if somebody read.
You got to. So especially like there are certain assignments you can get away with it, in a literature class where you just do short answer questions and stuff. But like I also teach creative writing. I can't read a kid's short story and give them meaningful feedback in 5 minutes. That's a 25-minute job at least.
At least to do it right.
Yeah, to do it right.
And to help the kid out. And what's the biggest misconception about your job / career, being a teacher or online teacher? What do you think?
Oh man, teachers as a whole is what I'm going to use right now, because online teaching has a whole different set of misconceptions. But I think most of the other teachers, I think most of the brick and mortar teachers right now, just because of the COVID situation and how many of them are forced to online teach at the moment.
Yes, yeah.
I think they're all starting to understand what we kind of have to go through a lot of times. But and God bless you guys that are out there that are doing it seriously, because I'm so happy that at least some of the students in our state still get to be served for the rest of this year.
Yeah,
it's just been nuts. But
just in case,
the misconception of teaching is that we're just babysitters. That's the biggest misconception.
Right.
And it's like No. No.
And just to preempt or to, right now, while we tape this, we are in the middle of COVID, where things are shut down, schools, no one's going out, 6 foot.
Yeah, Washington State has actually made, they basically canceled all brick and mortar schools for the rest of the year. So, which I feel the worst for the seniors this year. It's those seniors, they don't get to have their graduation, they don't get to have their prom, they don't get to have, any of that awesome experience.
Yeah.
So
celebrate what they've accomplished and to move forward. Just in case anybody was watching, that's why what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, kids aren't going to school right now. Everybody should know what's going on. And we're in Spokane, Washington, by the way. We're recording this and we do the podcast. Money.
Mm-hmm.
You make money?
I do. That's.
I don't need exacts, but
no. Washington has finally come around. There was a pretty famous battle within our state legislature between the legislature and the Supreme Court a few years ago, where the Supreme Court found that the Washington State Legislature had been guilty of not fully funding education in our state, part of which was teacher salaries, and the Supreme Court fined them something like $100,000 a day until they fixed it.
Whoa.
And they finally fixed it back in 2017, I believe, which was the year I decided to move back to Spokane. So everybody got a really big raise that year, except for me, because I was an idiot and decided to move before I had a job. And I thought, I've got 5 years experience and a master's degree. I'll have no problem getting a job. And then I applied for 3 dozen of them and couldn't even get an interview. But no, almost across the board statewide, I would say that most districts got somewhere in the double digits of a raise for pay raise for teachers. So while proportionally for other disciplines where so I've got a master's degree, if I were an engineer, the salary that I make right now is probably what a starting engineer would make, right? Even though I've got 6 years of experience. Right. But it's more than enough for me personally. Right. So if it's not, it's one of those things where if I were supporting a family, I would, my spouse would probably have to work, but it's not.
You don't have a spouse?
No, I don't have a spouse. I have a dog, and it'll buy a lot of dog food. Well, the other 2 jobs help too, and that's the other thing is that's, if I'm being honest, the reason why I'm really not that upset about any of the money situation is because those other 2 jobs, make up probably about a third of what my total income is. So it's
not like you live beyond your means.
And I'm not,
because of your upbringing and such. Yeah, I'm the same way.
I'm not buying a Ferrari anytime soon.
So. I don't need a. Yeah, I'm comfortable. What's the most enjoyable thing about being a teacher?
All right, I'll tell you a story. I guess it was a month or so ago now. It had to have been. It was probably mid-February, maybe it was leap year day. Maybe it was the 29th. I don't remember. I did a show, just a solo show acoustically, at Forza Coffee down on by Gonzaga on Hamilton.
Okay.
And Bob and Connie showed up to that. That's some friends of ours.
Very good friends of ours.
Also, 2 of my former students from Bridgeport showed up.
Wow. And
they were 2 of the first students that I had, not part of my first class, but I think they were the second class that I saw graduate. And they're 2 just fantastic young women, and so they both showed up, and I was sitting there talking to them and watched as an older gentleman in a walker was trying to make his way through the coffee shop, and one of the girls saw him and saw that some of the stuff that was on his walker was about to fall off, and she just got up and ran over to help him really quick without even thinking, not even thinking about it, right? And it was just one of those moments where it was almost like I was watching my own kid, right? I'm almost watching my own daughter think of somebody else's problems and deciding that she wants to get up and go help. So that's the best part right there, is the fact that you look at somebody like that. I don't even care. I know she can write. I know she can write. I know she can read well. I know she's smart. that's all secondary to the fact that I know that she's a good human being, and I know that I had some part in helping shape that. You know, that's it. That's the best.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So last question for you, Mr. Humphreys.
Yes, sir.
Doctor.
Not doctor. Just Mister.
Doctor.
Not yet. Although after I watched, I don't know if any of your viewers have ever watched Tiger King yet, or if you've watched it.
I have. No, I haven't.
Oh, there's this doctor. There's this guy on there that's called Doc, and they finally get around to asking him what he's a doctor, and he says he's a doctor of mystical science. And I said, I was like, where do I get a doctor of mystical science? I totally want that, just so I can be called doctor.
Well, my father was. He got an online. So he could do weddings and
so yeah. Well, you know, I did that too.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a doctorate. Like,
yeah, I know,
I
but
didn't have
still,
to actually pass anything to do that.
I know, but still.
Your dad probably did.
But yeah, I know Dad paid whatever he paid.
Oh, sure he did.
And he never did anything. He just wanted to have that title and have a certificate.
I still got my card in my wallet right now, man.
Certificate. I was actually, somebody asked him to if he would marry for a shock thing.
Uh-huh.
And
oh, that's great.
Yeah, Dad didn't want to do it, but still, it was just funny that, yeah.
For the record, I don't do that anymore either. I don't marry people anymore. I used to.
Would you marry me?
No, not even a little bit.
Thanks. So, what advice would you give to somebody that wants to be a teacher?
Don't. No, just kidding. That's what everybody says. That's what all the grizzled old teachers say. My advice is to learn to be flexible. You have to learn to think on your feet. You have to learn to improv. You have to learn to
adjust.
And, you know, that whole idea of improvise, adapt, overcome, you know, going back to the military thing, that's a real thing in teaching, because look at what's going on right now. I mean, you have got hundreds of teachers in Washington State that are having to figure out how to serve their students in a completely new way that they've never done before.
Right.
They've never had to do this before. They've never had to try to figure out how to do it before. Hell, I had a hard time learning how to do it. It took me about it took me from the beginning of the school year until just after winter break before I finally started feeling comfortable teaching online, making that transition. And so now I'm to the point where I'm able to actually use my skill set online effectively, I feel like. But it still was a learning curve, and I had tons of people around me that were able to help. These guys have nobody, you know. They don't. Their superintendents and their district administrators are like, we don't know either. We just know we gotta try to teach these kids. And oh my God, I feel sorry for you guys. So anyway, that's the biggest advice for like new teachers coming in is you need to learn to be flexible. You need to learn to adapt and always think of what's going to be best for your kids. And if you keep that in mind, then you'll be able to figure it out and you'll be able to make it work. But your kids' safety is number one, your kids' learning is number two, and if you keep those two things at the forefront of your mind, then that's the best thing you can do.
I got to ask this one question. I thought we were going to be done, but have you had a student in your career so far that he was down the wrong path, and you've seen it somehow? Have you been able to make a difference that way? Because I know that would be kind of hard to get. That's on almost a personal.
No, I've seen too many go the other way. Right. You know, and it hurts your heart every time that you see that. Right. But I do have one really great success story about that. But no, immediately I started thinking about the ones that got away. So that's, if that tells you anything. But so there was one kid, and I'm not going to say his name, but he was a kid that I worked with in Bridgeport. And a little bit of background, besides having one of the top 3% of high schools in the country, the town of Bridgeport is only about 2,000 people large. Right. It's remote. It's in the middle of the high desert, and it is comprised of probably about 90% migrant Hispanic farm workers and their families. So this is a reality that we have to teach in, and it's the reality of the fact that the community is very, very poor. There's a lot of illicit drug use, and I'm competing with somebody down the street that's saying, why are you listening to these fools up at the school trying to tell you how to get a job making $60,000-$70,000 a year when I can have you making $5,000 a week slinging, coke or heroin or whatever, right? So that's what you're up against. And I had this kid that was, he acted like he was hard. He acted like, he was part of that scene and everything else, and disruptive all day long in every class. And I was constantly fighting with him throughout his junior year of high school, like through his whole junior year. I mean, I had him to the point where we were in the principal's office and she was telling him that if I sent him in one more time, he was expelled and he was just not going to be graduating anymore. It got to that point. And for whatever reason, I'm not going to take any credit for this because that's how I left him as my student.
Right.
The next year when he came back as a senior, word starts spreading around like, hey man, this guy's like turning into a leader. He's starting to take these other fools and like knock them upside the head. He's starting to like, and he did throughout the whole rest of his senior year. I didn't have him in any classes his senior year, but every time I saw him, I was like, man, I am so proud of you. You're doing such a good job. And it's like, he gave me a big hug at graduation. I got a great picture with him and everything like that. And I don't know, I haven't heard what he's doing now, but I'm pretty sure he was going to Wenatchee Valley College and then going to move on from there.
So you might reach out and say hi.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, so he's definitely one of those kids that you see him turn around, and it's awesome.
I bet. Make a difference, and to know you're making a difference, doing what you first of all enjoy what you do, but you actually, like you said, to know that.
Yeah, I don't like people. Everybody talks about retirement. Yeah, of course I'll retire
Eventually,
but I'm never going to stop doing any of these things. I don't think.
Right.
I think even when I retire from the public school system, from the K-12 system, I'll still teach as an adjunct at a college somewhere. I'm always going to be playing music until my fingers fall off. I'll be writing until I can't write anymore.
And just real quick, I do preempt talking about music. At the beginning of the podcast, there's music, and there's our bumper music, intro and end. It's off Plastic Saints album.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, and you were a part of that.
Is that, which one is it?
I believe it's Pyrite.
Oh, that's a good song.
The other day,
actually. Hey, listen to that one on Apple Music a lot because I want some fractions of a cent.
Actually, Brandon and I play in a band. We've been playing in a band forever. We recorded an album. So the intro music is
put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, there you go. Plastic Saints. So there. We'll do this again. We'll talk music more. I just want to get the teaching thing because, especially with what's going on now and the things, how things are changing, and society and how funky they are. So, Mr. Brandon Humphreys, once again, what's your official title?
My official title is public high school English teacher.
Thank you for your time. I'm Vic Boudreau. Thank you for watching Career Paths. Look at her. And our new set. So we moved from one spot to another. Hopefully this is working for everybody. So it's a work in progress.
We're between two ferns.
We're
quiet between two ferns. That's not a fern. That's not one either.
It's a plant. I don't know. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Do you know that show? Between Two Ferns? Oh, it's Zach Galifianakis from the guy from The Hangover, the bearded guy.
Oh yeah.
It's him doing these really fucking awkward interviews with like all these celebrities. He actually had Obama on there once. Really? He had Hillary Clinton on there one time.